and this is the IoT prototype meeting. We don't think there's been another one. I've been involved in this kind of fun toy learning educational thing, which really kind of, opened up some interesting ideas I had to use this new technology. Along with my friend Marta, she got me interested in it also. And Roman's a hardware guy. He's actually building devices for this technology. So let's get started. Okay, first housekeeping rules. Everybody knows, put your cell phone or other electronic devices on silent, please, or vibrate. Okay, after the presentation, all of the table demo presenters will introduce themselves and kind of give you a synopsis of what they'll be presenting in the room just adjacent to us here. Restrooms, there's women's bathrooms right along this wall. There's more bathrooms next to the other room, also like a little hall. And please write down your questions. We're going to go through the presentations kind of fast. We want you to spend some time talking, and we want to meet you, of course, and we want to see all the cool IoT demos. So we'll do your questions at the end. And after the presentation, we're going to do a door prize drawing. So all of you who put your name in that big steel mixing bowl, you're going to have a chance to win something cool. So let's get started.
Excuse me, Yvonne?
Yes?
So, the police downstairs, the park downstairs, they were saying it shuts at 8.
Oh, I don't know if they're police or probably security guards. Okay, Jordan's going to speak to that. Here he is.
Hello, I'm Jordan. I work at the library. So we do close at 8. We would say after.
And still escape.
Yes, it's still escape.
Can you get out of the parking garage?
Parking garage is still open, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
No, you'll have to stay
I
around.
had to walk.
It's okay. All right, let's get going. Hi, thank you for
What's that?
coming. Have a seat.
Yeah.
It's Tim, another friend of mine. Okay, we couldn't have done this without the help of Jordan. This is Jordan, guys. Everybody say thank you, Jordan. He's been my best friend. And of course, the Dallas Eric Johnson Library. Who would have known that there was this big building here downtown? I need to come here more often. Actually, I have started coming here more often. I need to thank my husband, Lee Barron. He took the day off of work and prepared all the food for me. He's just the best husband ever. He knows Okay, and of course our table presenters, we can't thank them enough. They're going to get you interested in their, things they did with the Internet of Things. And, sometimes you think, well, they can do it, I can do it too. That's where I think sometimes, and probably a year later, I'm where they're at. And we do appreciate all the people that advertise for us, such as Launch DFW, IoT Texas, Raj Daniels, some of them couldn't have made it, Ron Dondag. I guess that's about it. Well, I mean, there's others, but we're not going to go on that long. Here's our agenda, and Marta's going to start off here, and I'll give it to Marta.
Thank you, Yvonne. As you see here, so you can hear me?
Mike's
Can you-
not on.
Hold it close.
No, it's not on.
Switch mics.
No, okay. Okay. As you see here on the agenda, we have a number of speakers. So that would be us three organizers, my friend Yvonne Salazar, my friend Roman, my friend Ed Hightower, and myself. And then we'll go, as Yvonne said, to the interaction for the postcard demonstrators and hands-on demonstrations. We expect the first section, which is the presentations, to last about an hour, and then continue conversation here, but we would mostly want you to go next door to the presentations. In a nutshell, IoT is made of 3 domains: sensors and actuators, connectivity, and people and processes. With sensors, we extend our eyes, ears, senses into the world, so we collect more information. This, I take it back, it's not yet information, it's input. That gets digitized into data, and that data is stored onto networks. And from here on, through people and processes, the data is transformed into information, knowledge, augmented learning that we all need to operate in the world, whether it's to make business decisions or simply live our lives. We'll follow with the presentations. Our next presenter is Yvonne Salazar. She will talk about an end-to-end system solution using IoT prototyping. Let's welcome Yvonne Salazar.
You guys hear me? Do I need a microphone? I'll use microphone.
Is that one working?
It's probably working. Okay, yeah.
That's good.
Usually I'm pretty loud anyways. Okay, this is who I am. I want to become a system integrator using all these new technologies. And yeah, I'm looking for people who like to think outside the box and figure out ways to change legacy systems, make them more efficient, more cost effective, more environmentally friendly. And we can do it. I did it just as a contest. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that right now. Just start with your imagination. I guess actually you don't start with your imagination. It's good to have imagination, but you really start with a problem. What is a problem that you think could be fixed using newer technology? And once you figure out what you want to solve, you can do some research, you can do some prototyping, you can do some testing, and then you're on your way. The problem that I chose was for a contest. And one of the components of this contest was try to make waste management better. Because as you all know, landfills are filling up fast. Americans make too much trash. It's a problem. So then I thought, okay, the way we currently do garbage collection, it's on a time basis, like say weekly. So let's say there's a dumpster, you live in an apartment, and the dump truck guy comes to pick up your trash. But say this time it's only like a quarter filled. You know, why did I waste that, time and trouble to go get this and it's not even full? Not only that, they damage the roads. I don't know if your alley looks like my alley. There's a lot of potholes from the big dump trucks. And also, I live close to a park, so they even drive a little bit on the park because they don't fit in the alleys and they mess up the grass in the park. So anyways, let's figure out a better way to do this. What's wrong with it now? These big trucks, they add more traffic congestion, and of course, like I said, wear and tear to the roads. And the more they're out, the more chances they're going to get in an accident or cause an accident, and it increases the risks for insurance and also maintenance for these big, expensive trucks. Not to mention the pollution. Nobody likes to be around a diesel big rig or even next to a stinky dump truck. So I said, why not collect the maximum amount of waste? Well, saving money, resources, and being green. So this was my sketch. So what I decided to do was I was going to make a dumpster, but we were going to make it smarter. There's going to be some sensors, just say for the heck of it, a level sensor, so it would know how full it was. And also, I found out that in waste management, they do weigh trash. They do a lot of metrics, and one of the metrics they do is called diversion. It's a diversion calculation. What diversion means is, say you have another dumpster or another container that collects recyclables. So they weigh that, and they know that that amount of waste did not go to the landfill. So it was diverted. So that's another metric. So that's why we want to know, the weight of this trash, because pretty soon there's not going to be any more landfills, and they got to know in advance how fast it's filling up and where are they going to put the next one. Hopefully not in the ocean. But so anyways, I was going to make this variable. Whoever owned the dumpsters, the dumpster company, would be able to alarm this any way they wanted. They could change it. It would be variable. They could say, hey, come pick this up when it's 70% full, when it's 80% full, or maybe now everybody's on vacation, we better make it 50% full. So whenever this alarm would trigger, it would send an SMS or other alerts to the company to let them know that, hey, we got a dumpster. And also it would send information from these sensors to the cloud. And of course that's wireless. Inside the cloud, we would have special software that would process this information. It would know the location of the dumpster, the time it actuated the alarm when it got full. And also, let's see, I said location, the time, and I can't remember the other one. But anyways, what it would do is it would make a routing path for the dump truck driver. And it would use the information and it would do least cost routing. It would be either the shortest distance or the shortest time. So then you would be using this resource more, efficiently. And it would send this information down to this high-tech dump truck. Maybe it's not so high-tech, there's GPS now, but it would transfer the route information to the driver's dump truck. So anyways, the driver would get in the truck the next morning to go collect the trash. We have a lot of things moving here right now. We have dumpsters filling up. We don't know how fast they're going to fill or when they're going to fill, or somebody finally decided to clean the attic and then it got filled up really fast. And also we have the guy driving this truck all around Dallas, collecting this trash. So what happens if there is another dumpster within like a quarter mile or close by to this dumpster that had already alarmed? Well, this guy is out going to collect the first dumpster, or the dumpster that had previously alarmed. But what happened then is the driver would be notified saying, hey, we just got a new dumpster ready for pickup. And they would say, it seems like you'll have enough room in your truck to pick it up. And they would know that because this truck would have a special lever or other device that would compact the trash, and it would tell you how much room you have left in this dump truck. So the guy would say, he would look at that and say, hey, I do have enough room to collect that garbage over there, on the other side of Barnes Bridge or whatever. So then it would pick it up there. Therefore, it's being, efficient all the time, and it's one less dump truck they have to worry about, as well as less garbage overflowing or rats or whatever coming in. And, you want to keep things as clean as possible. Oh, and I also put some fancy graphics and stuff like that. That's probably not really necessary, but I think that was one of the things they wanted in the contest. So here's the prototype solution. I used a Gemalto Centurion board to do the prototype, and it was connected over 3G. So I'll just play the video for you guys. If it sounds bad, I can just talk it through, but let's give it a try. Hi, this is the Gemalto Centurion board, which I use to prototype Internet of Things solution for dumpsters filling. These 3 sliders are emulating a dumpster as they fill. And there is a SIM card in here which is connected to the wireless internet. And we're going to be getting real-time results from the SIM cards to our app. So let's go ahead and get started. This is dumpster 1, it's being filled. Whoa, lots of trash coming in today, must be spring cleaning. Whoa, now I see on dumpster 1, we've got an alarm. So now the operator has a visual alarm and also a timestamp. And that is what we want to see. And it's accurate, so they'll know when this dumpster filled up and the time it filled up. And in addition, we'll probably also put an address on there. All right, so let's go to dumpsters 2 and 3 very quickly now. And then I'll show you the email notification as well. Okay, here goes dumpster 2. Whoa, it triggered. Dumpster 3. There, it triggered again, and we got 3 dumpsters that need attention. Busy day here in Dallas. So let's look at the 3 separate SMSs. All right, right there we can see that it did alarm, and we have a SMS message indicating the time it alarmed and that it's almost full. So as you can see, we have some information in this email that is very pertinent to this solution. It tells you the time that the dumpster alarmed. It reiterates the level at which it is set for to alarm. And also it gives us a unique transaction ID so that this can be stored in a database for historical purposes or any other data crunching things. But see, so we have lots of real-time data. It's going to help make our trash collecting much more efficient. Thank you. Okay, simple-based solution and add a lot of bells and whistles. I think this is on, yeah. You're going to have logistics optimization because you have things traveling and moving. You're coordinating when dumpsters are filling as well as when truck drivers are out on the roads. You can add compacting to it, make them even pick up more. I think the most important thing I find personally about Internet of Things and data and big data is the ability to do predictive analysis. I mean, I used to work in wireless networks, and one of the jobs I had was operations and maintenance, but I could always predict when something was going to fail or something was going to go bad because I knew certain indicators, and I would watch them and say, oh, you better do something about this because it looks like this is getting too high capacity. Before you know it, you're going to start rejecting calls. So anyways, predictive analysis to me is very important. So let's, why not, don't wait till the trash can's overflowing and garbage and it's out, the dogs opened it and threw everything everywhere. Pick it up before before it gets to that point. Okay, so next, if you want to build a system, you do something called you decide what is your minimal viable product, MVP. So this is the way I looked at it. Okay, well, trash is not utterly important. It's not a matter of life or death. So maybe you only need to connect to the cloud twice a day, just to check on how it's going. You're going to send the fill level, location, timestamp. It's not going to be a lot of data. You're not going to be sending videos. So since it's not a lot of data, you don't need to invest in a high bandwidth transport mechanism like 5G. You could use something like LoRa, and we'll go over that a little bit later in the presentations. And latency is not important. Who cares if the information about the trash came in a minute late or 2 minutes late? It wasn't a life or death situation. So you can look at these variables and say, these can work in my advantage because I can make this a lower cost solution. So you just think about a wish list, more design criteria. Okay, we want low energy consumption, probably a battery. This solution needs to be ruggedized, but still have access to whatever RF transport you're going to be using. So, you need the antenna to stick out somewhere. And also you need to be able to connect to a cloud. Let's see, I think I might have skipped one here. And then you think about the design criteria for the sensor. Where's it going to go? It's going to go in a trash can. Here in Texas, okay, Texas is hot. We have high humidity. We sometimes have freezing temperatures. And another important thing I wanted to know is the metrics. I want to make sure people see the return on their investments in this. So the more data I could collect, I would definitely do that. Oops. And here's some more, just basically what else can we use? We could use solar, we could use wind operated, but that's just my thought process for this. And that's the company I started, and if you know somebody who wants a high-tech solution to do things better, just get in touch with me. Okay, next I'm sending it over to Marta. Here she goes.
Thank you.
You have to exit that screen.
Thank you, Yvonne. I come with a perspective of building custom business applications and doing business process automation for small and medium businesses. And in the past few years, I've learned a few things, and I thought I would share some of these with you. In June, we reached 2 million applications in each of the Google and Apple stores. And of these, interestingly, less than a third lasts more than a day, and 3% would still be active after 30 days. So we can think that there's potentially a lot of digital junk out there. There are way too many things to consider building applications in general and IoT applications. And that's part of the reason why some of these applications that have large teams behind them and significant funding will end up in the digital landfill. Let's look at some of these. What are forms of communication we currently use? How many of you here write or have authored books? How many of you here are not using chat or SMS or a form of texting? Not using, right? So very predictably, this is conformant with the trend that we see our communication going to lower volumes, more frequency, less effort in terms of number of words, for instance. And to the proverbial picture is 1,000 words where there are actually no words. What types of inputs do you use for our communication? There's the traditional way that's on the top row where we would type, tap, do gestures on our devices. And then there's the bottom row where we see the emergent technologies with newer types of input. How many of you have IoT buttons or have seen them in use? Good, good. With a click of a button, I could potentially trigger a complex, repetitive business process. Another example is the Amazon Echo. We have one here. And with this, I'm literally hands-free. I can use my hands to work on something else and interact through Alexa. And of course, with wearables, I have no input at all. The wearable is taking it from by me living. Then let's consider reach. That's also very important because let's say I'm in an office or home situation, and in that case I'm lucky because Wi-Fi or Bluetooth technologies are reliable and inexpensive, like in zero cost once I bought the equipment. We've also come to rely a lot on cellular technology, right? That extends our range quite a bit, and that comes at higher expense though. You need a service for that, and some can be very expensive. And now let's say your application or service wants to include myriad sensor devices in a farm field. Then yes, you have the reach, maybe, but you would have also a prohibitive cost, so you cannot do business with that. And that's where newer technologies like the cluster in the middle, it's called low power area networks, that's where they come in place. And these are, we'll hear about these a bit later. What does our communication look like? Well, again, it varies a lot. With the video, we have high bandwidth, high cost. As we go down the list, we get to IoT, where let's say we have sensor devices that maybe communicate 1% of the time. When they do, it's what people call a chirp, or it's soft as a whisper. How about input frequency? Of course, that could have potentially big impact on how we write our applications. How about personal cost? We are all aware of or know of applications with terrible UX. They literally drain our energy. So this is the right place to mention that the ideal interface is one that has very little friction. That's what's called the best interface is no interface. And if I can maybe build an interface that brings delight to my users, then well, good for me. I would also have to look at the news. So I listed here 10 items I saw recently in the news. Of these, 7 of them are, well, this doesn't point, okay. 7 of them are in the category of communication input. And we see Amazon Echo, that's Alexa running on an Echo device, IoT buttons. Then there are 2 in the extended reach category, with interestingly having the Facebook Aquila, a plane that circles in the sky and beams Wi-Fi on Earth. And there's one on privacy, and you've probably read about WhatsApp. Who's using WhatsApp here? You know that you have to decide to opt in or out, whether you share your some of your data with Facebook. So for me, I mean, for something like this, I would take as information that Amazon Alexa, IoT buttons, privacy are important, and I will possibly consider them in my next app. I have number 7 here, and I can, we can come up with tens more items to consider. But let's say we stop here, and the next step would be to define some goals. And once we have those goals, we have to be selective and focus on a small number. Once we have those, we will build some requirements which we will use to our development, which continues with prototyping. Prototypes have the huge advantage that they allow us to visualize, give life to our ideas. They allow us to explore functionality, hopefully gathered through user research. We can find answers with user testing and iterate towards a possible MVP. So I guess the biggest advantage of a prototype is that it allows us to get answers. We ask questions, we propose questions, we get answers. And we do that quickly with low cost and low risk. Now let's get into some concrete examples. Let's say I will be away for 3 weeks, and I'll be on a different time zone. I've paid a home sitter to take care of my dog, pick up mail, and let me know if there's anything I need to be aware of. In a first iteration, I would probably write an application like this, which actually I built for the demo, that has a sitter view and an owner view. And I've added some buttons for the sitter to press and say, I fed the dog, I picked the email. And I've also added chat functionality because, as I mentioned, I want to be in control of what happens with my data. And to give you a good example that I experienced last week was for a home health care application. You have a business agreement, you have certain compliances you have to meet. If you're not in control of your data, you will not be able to keep that business agreement. In a second iteration, I'll say, okay, let me bring in some of the new technology that I heard about. So let's say I will use an IoT button. I'll stick that in the cabinet next to the dog food. And that's very convenient because I know exactly where service was rendered, right? The button only works with a Wi-Fi in my home, right? As opposed to an application which could be used outside. I can use one button for, let's say, one click for feed the dog, double click for mail, and a long click for the sitter to notify me. I can use multiple buttons. And then on the owner side, so that's me on vacation, so let's say if I could talk to Alexa, ask home sitter for dog status.
The home sitter has fed the dog.
Well, not much, it's not very fancy, as my friend Roman pointed out. We'll do more for the next demo. With this, I've brought some technology into into some of this newer technology into my prototype, so I can take it and test it with my users. The second example is, I call it a home remote. In this case, I'm using one of Roman's Zensio sensor devices. I want to get home environment measurements, review in graph format some metrics. Maybe I want to set up some thresholds, and if things get out of bounds, get some alerts. Again, I will do a first iteration with a classic application where I have a panel with the measurements listed. We build some graphs. We can make these fancy, be intelligent, correlate a number of measurements. And then second iteration, we'll have Alexa to answer me in the office, let's say, wanting to know what happens in my vacation home or some other building I run for a customer. I can ask it, what's the Alexa asks Zensio for temperature data. For any topic I have on the list, I've told her to respond on. We can go even further with more complex scenarios where we combine parameters to something like give me the week with the least amount of out-of-bounds incidents, right? So that's back-end processing, and we can make it pretty complex. I would like to now wrap up with a few conclusions. So what I wanted to share, that we have to investigate aspects of communication. Those can vary a lot and can provide a lot of surprises to us when testing with actual users. We would investigate what technology to incorporate. We have to decide on what our most important goals are, since there are so many things to care about. We will want to build them from the start into a prototype, and always test our prototypes with actual users. And hopefully we can go further. We get acknowledgement and interest from our users, and we go further and build an MVP and maybe a product, and hopefully avoid digital junk. This is how you can reach me. I have an article on interaction design on Medium and a presentation on application prototyping on SlideShare. With that, my presentation has ended, and I would like to then transfer the presentation to my friend Roman Staszewski. He will talk about IoT sensor devices. Let us welcome Roman.
So today I'll tell you more about sensor devices and what are these things that people talk about, and what are the constituent parts of those and how they're basically used. So a little bit more about myself and the company. I started Zensio in 2014, and we're focused on building the versatile IoT sensor platform for rapid prototyping, proof of concepts, and as well as industrial deployments. And we also do the consultation and custom engagements for modifying the platform into specific needs, maybe optimizing costs or power consumption, or adding additional sensors and things like that. So what is the system, IoT system? It's basically composed of IoT sensor devices, and there are many different types of devices and different types of sensors, and they communicate using different methods. So basically, you might have a mesh kind of networking. You might have some local personal area networks with BLE. You might have the cellular connectivity, the low power WAN type of connectivity, or Wi-Fi. You could even communicate the data through the satellite, like Iridium, and then basically all the data is really concentrated or gathered in a device called edge device, gateway, or base station. Depends on the context. So like, for example, for cellular, these are base stations on the towers that you see driving around the town. For low power WAN, these would be like gateways. For the Wi-Fi, it could be routers. But basically, the functionality of this is to gather the data, pass it on to the IP network, to the internet for further processing and doing something useful with that. The gateway might also be doing some filtering or aggregating the data and maybe doing some local intelligence on that. And then basically the rest of the system is just the cloud processing, the servers and big data and analysis and display and also maybe like a console for monitoring the performance of the devices and functionality and so on. So what are these sensor devices or the things? Essentially what I call the IoT sensors are the sensors that are connected to internet. And basically there are three really fundamental functions of the sensors. So they have to have a sensor that measures some physical quantity. They need to have a connectivity to send the data to internet, and they also need to be powered somehow. So either batteries or wall plugs or power supplies or energy harvesting. Basically these are the fundamental really features of the IoT sensor. And then there are a number of support functions that are very useful and typically used in a system. So like microcontroller units are extremely important because they organize the information and allow to program how the sensor device works. There might be some security features. There might be some memory storage for storing locally data before it's transmitted. And there are thousands of, if not even millions of different types of sensors that measure different things, and they have different types of accuracy, they have different types of interfaces. It's just there's a plethora of different sensors. There are hundreds of different communication methods. There's some proprietary, there are some open standards, and some are short distance, some are medium distance, some are long distance, some are global reach. So it's just, there's also a lot of different ways for the sensors to communicate the data. And then there's also a lot of hundreds of different power supply options. You might have different types of batteries, you might have different types of current inputs, voltage inputs, AC, DC, and so on. All this diversity, and then also these are supposed to be very low power devices, potentially energy harvested, and there's RF communication and low cost. These are the factors that make IoT sensors very difficult to implement, especially if you are going beyond the prototyping phase and you want to deploy something in the field. So we'll dive a little bit into the sensors, what these things are used for. So sensors sense and measure physical quantities and convert them into the digital representation. And there's a whole gamut of different types of sensors that measure things that humans can perceive, but also they can measure things that we cannot ever perceive, like for example electric fields or magnetic fields or gases, different types of gases and chemicals. Basically there's a lot of different types of sensors, and we basically create the sensors to measure everything that is worth measuring. And that gives us some input that we can use to improve the process or quality of life. The sensors are not only the world's digital nervous system, but eventually they will provide the digital mirror of our world. Basically, we'll be able to create the models, very precise models of our world, and take advantage of that to predict the behavior and to improve the products and services and the quality of life. What is driving the sensor progress? If you look at the technology, there are a couple of technologies that are really making huge contribution to the sensor development. One of them is MEMS, which stands for Microelectromechanical Systems. And this is a very complex technology, and it requires a lot of investment to realize. Fortunately, this technology was started to be used by the consumer electronics, like smartphones, and that basically created a huge economy of scale to reduce the costs, and then also create a lot of variety of sensors based on that technology. So you have accelerometers, the magnetometers, and gyroscopes, the digital microphones, barometers, and it's just the number of these sensors that are used in the smartphones is increasing dramatically every year, and this is the trend that IoT is going to benefit from because basically it can use very low cost, small and versatile and low power sensors for its own use, and then further increase slash the cost and increase the capabilities. So what can we expect from the future sensor trends? There will be more sensors and more of the MEMS types of sensors. Another type of sensor that is also making huge improvements are the imagers. So basically like video cameras or heat sensors. These are becoming extremely useful to be able to capture the type of physical phenomena that has not been very easily captured before. There's a lot of investment into electromagnetic types of sensors, so like the radars and so on, and the biochemical sensors. So there will be sensors pretty much for everything, and they will be cheaper and smaller and more power efficient and easier to use and more accurate. With so many different types of sensors, the know-how about the sensors and which sensor to use for what is going to be extremely important. So now let's switch gears to wireless connectivity. And like with sensors, there's also a plethora of connectivity options with various characteristics. So there are like a wired type of technologies and wireless technologies. So the wireless has been really the key enabler to IoT because it allows the sensor placements pretty much anywhere and not being tied by the wires, which are quite expensive. Why there are so many different types of wireless technologies? That's because these are pushing the power, cost, range capabilities. It's very expensive to send information wirelessly, and you have to make a number of trade-offs. So that's why we have so many different types of standards and protocols because they address different needs. So like one way to categorize connectivity is through the range. So PAN stands for Personal Area Network. That's really just a few meters, maybe distance that it communicates. Then the next is LAN. That's maybe the whole building that you're able to cover and communicate with. Then you have the MAN or NAN. So MAN is Metropolitan Area Network or Neighborhood Area Network, and that basically covers towns and cities. And then we have a WAN, which is a wide area network, so that covers the countries and the globe. So basically, that's how these different technologies stack up. You might basically have for a short distance like the Z-Wave or Bluetooth, and a little bit longer distance for LAN and Wi-Fi, and through the cellular networks all the way to satellite communication. So how do I select the communication technology? Basically, you have to look at your application requirements because that drives everything else. And the application requirements can be technological requirements, and they also are the business requirements. So you have to basically, from technology point of view, you have to look at what is the range that I need to cover. So that's going to basically decide which type of technology I'm going to use. The throughput, how much data do I send per minute or per second? The interoperability concerns. So do I need to be compatible with some other devices that I need to connect to or with? The power consumption, is this battery powered, or is it powered from the main power banks? So the size. Do I need to make my device very small, maybe into wearable, or can it be larger and sit in the truck? So it's just many different concerns from the technology point of view. And then from business point of view, you also have to look at the solution cost. So like the capital expenditures, what you put up front to make the system, and operational expenditures. How much does it cost you to operate the system in production? The time to market, is the technology mature or not? Do I have to wait and create the next network? Do I put my own base stations, or do I use something that already exists? And how difficult or easy the technology is to use, and what is the support model? Do I want to maintain it and support it myself, or do I want another company to do that? So it's just a lot of different factors to consider. It's a pretty complex equation, and needs to be really analyzed correctly. Otherwise, we'll have problems later. Like I heard people using Bluetooth for, communicating the sensor data from office in the office. I mean, it's just there's no range, so it doesn't work. But what I'm excited about is the low power wide area networks. So Marta mentioned about that, and this is a very exciting technology because it opens up new capabilities that were not possible before. So here I just noted several of the best known or important technologies that are deployed these days. And we won't spend much time because there's not enough time to go over these, but they all have different sweet spots, and they make a different trade-offs from technology as well as business point of view. Some of them are managed technologies. So basically, you go to one vendor and you get all the pieces that are pre-verified and work, and you don't have to worry about setting up the base stations. Like for example, with Ingenu, you basically they have Dallas covered, and you just build the devices. You don't have to worry about anything else. Let's say if you are in the town that doesn't have that kind of coverage, then you have to use some other technology, like for example LoRa, which basically allows you to really create your own base stations and then run your own network. Sigfox is basically if you are not in the area where they cover, then you're out of luck. There are many different trade-offs. So the cellular, the 3GPP, these guys are also looking at the IoT. They have been focused more on the mobile devices and smartphones and so on, and that's and so from the power point of view, they're really not optimized for the IoT type of applications, but they're trying to catch up with the unlicensed low power wide area network technologies, and they're basically creating the solutions like a narrowband IoT and the DCGSM that are kind of equivalent to what the other ones are, but they're using the licensed spectrum. And these will be more expensive to operate because somebody has to pay for the spectrum license, which is billions of dollars. The government sells it for. And also you have to use the network certifications. So you have to certify your devices to much more stringent levels and so on. On the other hand, they should provide better quality of service because they limit who can enter that spectrum and which device is able to operate there. And potentially, since these are supported by huge players, longevity might be better. So from power supply point of view, there's a lot of possibilities now becoming with the energy harvesting. And energy harvesting basically takes the energy out of thin air and then creates enough of the power to supply the sensors to transmit the information to the cloud. And this is becoming possible because the sensors, radios, and MCUs are becoming very low power. So basically the key here is if you look at this graph, the red bar represents how much power you are accumulating from energy harvesting, and then the blue one is basically shows how much you are consuming. If you add these up, you will see that you won't be able to operate this device. There's not enough juice to power the device. But if you basically operate in a time intervals fashion, then basically if you average the power that you are continuously collecting and then power that you are spending in a burst fashion to get the data from the sensors and then send it to the internet, then basically if you average those out, you actually would in a lot of cases you would be able to do this. So this is a very exciting technology. The power management IC chips, they're becoming quite low cost and they're well optimized. And typical ambient energy sources are light, thermal, motion like wind or vibration, and also electromagnetic fields. So in conclusion, these are really exciting times for IoT, and the IoT sensors and the cloud are the fundamental enablers for IoT. The wireless sensors and power and compute technologies are just becoming good enough and very quickly improving, and we're entering the virtuous cycle where we have increased capabilities and reduced costs that opens up new benefits for business use, which generates further investment, and the investment drives the innovation, and then there are increased capabilities and cost reduction. It just repeats itself. So this is really what is driving the fourth industrial revolution, and it's an unprecedented, just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So you know, we should. I mean, this is a really great time to get into this. So that's the best time to get into this. So we go to questions now, or
No, we'll continue with Ed.
Okay.
So. Thank you, Roman.
Martin. Great. Roman, that was an excellent, good overview of all the things that are going on. So there's a lot of challenges when we're trying to create products and bring them to market for the Internet of Things. So I'm going to kind of touch on some of the things that I've seen and some of the challenges that we'll be facing as we develop our products and develop solutions for the marketplace. So as Roman and Marta showed us earlier, that we have kind of three areas. We have the devices, the sensors and things that we put into the field, the endpoints out there. Then we have the networks, whatever they are. It can be wireline, but wireless, as Roman has pointed out, is probably going to be the most effective way for us to reach all these sensors that are going to be in the world. And then on the back end, we have a rich diversity of solutions and technologies that are back there that are going to take in that information, analyze that information, and then do something with it. And I'm not even going to get into that because that's a very complex area. My expertise is in the wireless area, and what I focus on then is how can that be implemented the best way. And what we're finding is that Wi-Fi and Zigbee and all that's great for in-building Bluetooth and whatnot for short-range kind of capabilities, and it will have some significant play, but not a whole lot. Then we see the cellular. Cellular has been around for a long time, and everybody's familiar with that and comfortable with that. They have a huge customer base. There's over 800 carriers in the world, so there's a natural thing to go there if you need longer distance. But they're actually, what the analysts are saying, they're going to be very niche market, and what they're going to supply is going to be relatively small number of connections. Where we're going to see the biggest use, and it depends on who you talk to, we're going to have either between 60% and 80% of the devices out there will be connected via low-power wide area networks. And now there's several different flavors of that. Now, low-power wide area networks are low power in their consumption, low power in their transmit frequency, and therefore low power in their consumption. That allows for long battery life. And most of these are using unlicensed frequency, unlicensed, so you don't have to pay for them. And so the cost of the infrastructure that they're putting in is going to be very low cost compared to the cellular guys. Now, the other characteristics they need to meet are that they need to be scalable. Because we're talking about billions of devices that are going to be connected in the future. And so these systems have to be able to scale up very easily. And they need to permit mobility. There's two kinds of mobility. One is you set a device down and then you decide to move it and go to another place, another country, that kind of thing. It needs to rescan and connect. That's one form of mobility. The other is truly moving assets. So you've got your cars, your trains, and your assets that are on some sort of cargo vehicle being moved from place to place. So those things, you'll have to look at the technology to see which one makes sense for you as to what your needs are and what you use for that particular situation. And then the communication needs to be reliable. So there's lots of people in this marketplace, in this area of low-power wide area networks. The four front runners that I see, though, are my company, Ingenuity, then Sigfox and LoRa. They've done a great job at marketing. LoRa is the LoRa Alliance, LoRa WAN, and the Things Network are all associated with their technology. And then we've got the cellular systems, and they're driven by that standards group called 3GPP. So when you start looking at those, you go, if I choose one of these technologies, I have to think about bringing them to market. What are the things that I will have to be concerned with? And some of these apply to you if you're an entrepreneur. Some of these will apply to you if you're a businessman trying to solve your problem. So you'll need to look at, the first thing is the funding. So if you're going to be doing it, you want to get with somebody that has the wherewithal to stay in the marketplace. So in our case at Ingenuity, we've gone through 4 rounds of funding, and now we're being funded by the licenses that we have around the world. We have 50 countries around the world licensed to use our technology. We'll always own and manage the network in the United States. LoRa has a crowdsourcing funding arrangement and the ability for companies and people to put in their private network. So when you're trying to create a small network in an area where there's no public network available, then you can get one of their base stations and put it in and cover that area, put several in and cover a campus or a small town, that kind of thing. And then their Things Network is being crowdsourced. Amsterdam collected enough money to create a private network for the whole city that everybody can get onto. So that's one option that is very interesting. Sigfox is probably the king of marketing and getting funding. They have over $115 million in funding, and they are licensing out their technology. They have, I'll talk about in a moment, I think they have 30 cities that they'll be up and working in for long. They have 14, I think, up and working now. And of course, the cellular guys have been around a long time. There's over 800 carriers in the world. They've got mature technology, customer base, and people know who they are and what they do. Their technology for low power winds and for the Internet of Things is questionable, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But they're trying hard, they got money and marketing, so they're going to make a big difference. So the other thing you got to look at is, what do I need for coverage? So with Ingenuity, in our case, we're going to be putting in our public network. We have 38 private networks. We've been around since 2008. It's a proven technology. Now we're going to put it in 100 cities in the United States by the end of 2017 and over 50 countries. At the rate we're going to cover 3/4 of the world's population in 3 years or so with our coverage. With LoRa, they're going to be going at 40 countries in the near future. They have over 3,700 volunteers in their Things network that is sponsoring and promoting and thinking of ideas and ways to use their technology. And Sigfox is in 14 right now with plans to be in 30 countries with their network here in the near future. And of course, Cellular, with their 800 carriers, they have a tremendous amount of coverage. They got some problems. They are so fragmented in so many ways with the technology they're using and with the frequencies. There's 44 frequencies that they can go on. No one frequency covers every place in the world. So if you're creating a product, you have to create all these different SKUs for the different regions you're in. Big challenges. So the other thing, how do you create an organization to support what you're trying to bring to marketplace? So in the case of Ingenu and Sigfox and the cellular carriers, we have an existing, Ingenu and Sigfox, we are creating our commercial ecosystem. So we're creating partners for the devices, partners for the applications, so the back-end systems integrators to put it in. LoRa is about systems integrator or private networks or entrepreneurs and enthusiasts that are trying to create solutions for people. And Sigfox is also creating their own. And then, of course, the cellular guys have an existing relationships and ecosystem that they're building on to bring machines communications to the world. So if you're going to be onboarding, there's all kinds of ways that this is going to evolve. So the goal is to make it easy for developers with their devices to easily connect to a network, whatever it is. So in the case of Ingenu and Sigfox, we will manage that process and make it as easy as possible. So when you put something on, you as the developer will be able to go into our networks at Sigfox and Ingenu and activate that device yourself and then manage it, turn it on and off, and see what kind of usage it is, that kind of thing. With LoRa, that depends on the private network that's being installed and who's running it and how you're going to do that sort of thing. So that's going to evolve. We'll just have to see how they work it out. In the cellular case, you're always going to have a SIM unless they move to a virtual SIM or something in the future. But you'll have to go through their networks and their systems to be able to activate and manage your devices. So maintenance, troubleshooting, keeping the networks up and working and whatnot. We will have we will professionally monitor and manage the system and troubleshoot and expand the network. LoRa being a private network, that's going to be dependent on who's managing the network, who owns it, what's it in, what's the purpose, and is it being run by an actual private company, or is it being run by the volunteers and whatnot. And then Sigfox is going to be professionally managed as well, and Cellular, of course, has got their own network of NOCs and personnel. Now, reliability, that's going to be important as we start moving into critical structures and things that we're monitoring and controlling that, in some cases, will be life-threatening or safety-related. So in our case, we've done over 300 person-years of testing to take our product from theory into the real world and realize some things didn't work in the theory, and we changed things to make it work. So we work with San Diego Gas and Electric and Southern Cal Edison. They require high reliability and high security. And so we developed our product to be a very mature and very highly capable. And one of the things that Ron was pointing out a while ago, we're at 2.4 gigahertz and Sigfox and LoRa are at sub-gigahertz range. So gigahertz is supposed to be longer range. But because we're at 2.4, we can use diversity antennas. So 1 inch, you're out of the null. And then we use highly sensitive receivers. And we, in the United States, transmitters can go out 4 watts EIRP out of the antenna, which gives us a link budget of 175 dB, an incredible amount of power that we're pumping out. So we've got receiver sensitivity. we reach far and deep in buildings that other technologies can't. But LoRa and Sigfox use the sub-gigahertz, and so they have a chance to go long range with their signals, and if done right, then they can be a right type of technology for the application they're using it. You got to look at that very closely to make sure that they make sense for what you're trying to do. And of course, cellular, part of their fragmentation, they have 2G, which is going away. 30 million devices are going to be abandoned here shortly, or left high and dry. Then they've got LTE-M, they've got extended coverage GSM. They just passed Release 13 in June to allow for NB-IoT, which will be a low power using the resource block inside of LTE signal, which is promising, but it's got a lot of issues because it's all theory, it's all in the standards group, not tested in the real world. So stay tuned and watch what happens when they put it in the marketplace and get feedback. Hopefully it'll evolve into be a reliable and useful system for people that want to use that. So in the future, you got to watch out because like the cellular guys, they've had to sunset. They want those 2G communications, LTE and 5G networks in those, to refarm those lower frequencies of 2G. So all these devices are going to be high and dry. You don't want to be done, want that to happen to you. In the engineering network, we'll put in the contract, we'll support that technology for 15 to 20 years, whatever you guys want us to put in the contract, and it will be backwards compatible. And yet, when we actually put in a system in a base station or on a tower site, we're actually putting in 2 access points, 2 base stations. One is for the traditional system that will last for 15, 20 years. The other is for new technologies that we want to bring online, low latency and ability to support moving targets and that kind of thing. LoRa, they're chip spectrum, so it's a pretty straightforward technology that they're using. We'll have to see how they evolve. Keep up with that because that might be very useful in certain situations, particularly small private networks that you're installing. And that's private networks, you may be able to control that for as long as you need it to work. Sigfox, very simple technology, very much one way. They do have kind of an acknowledgement, but no way to download any kind of information of any substance. So watch out. The use cases for Sigfox are pretty limited, so you got to understand that it's basically a one-way from the endpoint back in, and maybe an acknowledgement depending on if there is allowance. Duty cycle kills them. They can't, in Europe particularly, they can't respond with a lot of responses back to the remote site. They're by law restricted in the amount of information they can send back. So be careful with that. Cellular, of course, they're evolving. Watch out. Let's see what happens with their technology. They desperately want to get in this area, so they're going to do everything they can to make it work. All right, so just to finish up here, if you're familiar with sub-gigahertz, then these are the areas. So 915 and 315 are available here in the States area. 915 is the center frequencies, 902 to 928. Over in Europe, you have 868 is their main one that they're using, but they also can use 433. And then you got these others. But their frequencies are all over the place and not necessarily in every country. However, 2.4 is in every country in the world. Same rules, just different power levels. The United States, Asia Pacific, South America, Australia all have 4 watts EIRP out of the antenna. Europe, Middle East, and Africa have 10 milliwatts out. You can still use that and get a lot of good coverage with that kind of technology. And the beauty is, you create a product, one SKU, works everywhere in the world. You tune it down in Europe and all. You keep it at full power here. So that's it for me. This is our coverage of the network of engineering here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We cover McKinney, Frisco, Denton, Fort Worth, at the edge of Weatherford, Waxahachie, and Mesquite, and Rockville. So I have a lot more things I can show later on. I can talk for an hour, but I won't. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I guess in our excitement we missed one presentation, and that was Roman's live demo, IoT demo.
Did you still do it?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so now we'll show a live demo. Hopefully things work. You know how it is with the live demos and the Murphy's Law, but I think it should work. So I'll briefly describe what the demo entails. Basically we have a Zenseo IoT sensor device. That's the device. And it has multiple sensors, environmental sensors in it, so you can measure all these different types of physical quantities. And then it will use the LPWAN type of radio. In this case, it's a LoRa radio to send the information to the cloud. And so how we receive the data is basically using the LoRa gateway. And the gateway is basically RF concentrator, so it gets all the signals in from the antenna. And then there is a Raspberry Pi that basically has a gateway software that puts it in the right, in the LoRaWAN type of protocol, and then send it through the Wi-Fi to the router in the library somewhere. And then the router is connected through the Ethernet and goes to these cloud servers where there is the LoRa network server hosted. In this case, we're using Loriot network server. And then there is an IoT application written by Marta and her company that basically presents that information to the end user. So there's a PC display with the information and the charting and so on, as she showed. And there is also API to the Alexa, so we can actually do something really neat with this information. I guess I'll show the presentation, show the demo. Alexa, ask Zenseo what is the temperature data.
Here's your Zenseo data. The temperature is 23.2 degrees Celsius.
Alexa, convert that to Fahrenheit.
Alexa, ask Zenseo to tell me the light data.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Luminosity. Alexa, ask Zenseo to tell me the luminosity data.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
There's a problem with my accent. Okay, Alexa, ask Zenseo to tell me the barometric pressure data. Alexa, ask Zenseo to tell me the barometric pressure data.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Alexa, ask Zenseo for pressure data.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Alexa, ask Zenseo for noise data.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Maybe we lost the Wi-Fi or something. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, in the disclaimer, it's a live demo, so things can go wrong, and there is Murphy's Law, which is acting against us. Okay, so I think we basically can get into the questions and answers, and basically you can ask the question of any one of the presenters, and so you can direct to anyone or all of them, and we'll try to.
Yep, we'll bring the microphones to you. Raise your hand, or you can come up here too, if you like.
My first question is how do I get a Zenseo?
So
site I can't figure out.
we are basically in the process of producing the units. Soon we'll have that on our website. You will be able to order that. You can place a pre-order if you want.
So each of these networks you're discussing, the engineering for those, do they have like a proprietary language that they're communicating over, or is there a standard that's being set somewhere and then you're just controlling the bandwidth? Like, how do these play nice with one another and how expensive are they?
Yeah, they're each different. Can you hear me okay? So in the case of Intenu, it's an RPMA network, came out of Qualcomm, used in the Cold War for clandestine communications. Qualcomm continued on with high-speed data for cellular networks. Two guys left in 2008 to create protocol for machines. Lots of small messages being brought up. So they're based on direct sequence spread spectrum. LoRa is based from Semtech, taking chirp spread spectrum and creating a technology with that. They own that physical layer. They've got two other manufacturers going to produce the hardware at that level. So you can do Semtech, Microtech, and somebody else is going to call. That's their technology. Everything above that, all the rest of the stack is open stack, but you have to buy their chips. On the Sigfox, that's all proprietary. It's an ultra narrow band, and it's a very simple technology. Transmits worst case, longest time it can. It runs at